Hi, it's Silver Bumper here. I'm with Music Radar Tech, running through some questions. Let's go. So I started using Pro Tools just to record some instruments around my house. I used to play a bit of piano and guitar and sing. And then sort of as I was in my teenage years, I wanted to sort of make electronic music. I was inspired by people like Skrillex, Muramasa, Aphex Twin, Arca, like a whole Radiohead, loads of different people. So I just got Ableton and just started combining my singer-songwriter stuff, adding some electronic elements, different sounds, some synthesizers, and just sort of creating my own really songs and ideas. And then that sort of later then turned into dance music when I started going out when I was in my sort of late teens. So in my studio currently, I've got a space in Hackney Wick. I've got a lot of synthesizers, a lot of classic ones like Yamaha DX, some M1. The Silver Bumper sound is mostly trying to sort of emulate a lot of the old school 90s kind of production, whether that's R&B, hard house, garage. So I like having access to a lot of those old original sounds. And it's just very, very much focused on an in-the-box style setup. I just have 2 monitors and a space for my laptop, and I just do everything from there. What I like most about Ableton is just the way that it guides you, and kind of the quirks of the software just sometimes give you a sound that you didn't know you needed or didn't know that you kind of wanted in a song. I think just the ability to just warp, stretch, pitch audio and MIDI and just play around with sounds, and just the accessibility to sort of the possibilities with how you can manipulate sound is just really appealing. I think that when you're making dance music, sometimes you only want 2 or 3 elements that give you that weirdness, and I think that Ableton can just get that done quite quickly. And I think that for me, that's what I enjoy the most about Ableton. And I think it's the perfect software for dance music because I just think of the speed of it, and the speed and how weird it is combined together is just cool. It's just cool to me. I actually use mostly Ableton stock plugins when it comes to kind of the bulk, I say boring style mixing, whether or not that's my EQ, compression, distortion, saturation, my functional style mixing. But I'm very heavy on instrument plugins. I spend all my money on just instrument VSTs. I have everything. I recently got one called Surge XT, which is just crazy. It's an open source kind of thing. I use a lot of Repro, Diva, a lot of Xenology to get those kind of classic sounds. One of my favorite things to do is just duplicating MIDI channels and just throwing on a Repro patch, and just I don't know, it just gives you a texture or a melody or, a weird sound that you just didn't really know that you needed in the groove, which I like about them, for sure. I say I buy a new instrument plugin every week, definitely. Always, whether that's a free one, that's a weird old school, bass plugin, or a little drum synth, or an acid bass, or just something cool. I find that it's the sounds that make me inspired. So any way that I can hear new sounds, for me, it's just always exciting. I want to definitely buy some more Moog synths, for sure, and just try out some more of those kind of squelchy saw wave basses. So yeah, I've got I know Diva, and a lot of the Moog stuff does kind of have that effect, but I just really want to get the real deal. So yeah. It's different every time, but I just try and get ideas down. For me, that's the main thing. So whether or not that's a vocal chop, a drum groove that I like, or just a set of melodies that go together well, and I'll just leave them. It's very rare that I make a tune and finish it on the day. I just try and get 10 ideas down, and then I kind of just export them and just come back to them when I feel like they fit in with other ideas, for sure. One thing that I really like doing is taking MIDI, whether or not that's an instrument or a drum groove or a drum roll, and just dragging it and just randomly dragging samples into them, whether or not that's like some weird sort of like noise gated, filter sound, or if that's like a disco stab or it's a vocal hit, and just trying to manipulate that. I think one thing that I've had to like try and force myself to do is just like, when you've got the bare elements of a tune, I always just try and like stick with them and just kind of like play around with them as much as I can. Just so you're not introducing like almost too many elements into a tune. And then I like sometimes just a different texture adding to a sound that you've already got can be like, for me, the thing that can just make the track feel more finished, you know what I mean? I always like using good subs and separating them out. I use a plugin called the Sub. I use SH101, a classic sub sound, quite a lot. And I like to write stuff that I think sounds good on speakers. So I'm very aware of I try to be like aware of the key of the song. So if I'm writing in D minor, I know that D and E and F, those kind of notes hit really well on sub sounds. So if the melody then is moving too far up, I might then sort of compromise the key of the song to make sure that the sub is hitting in that kind of 38 to sort of 48 hertz region, just because I find that kind of works well on the sound systems. So yeah, for me, it's mostly the melody and the writing. And I think that just layering is kind of everything for me. It's like separating out sub, having stuff that gives punch, stuff that gives texture, and stuff that gives powerful sub energy, so that it can hit on a sound system. It's all about like hitting on a sound system for me. I think that's like the thing that I'm kind of like mixing for, if that makes sense. I often like start by just getting the core elements of the drums down, that being the kick, the hi, and the clap, and then depending on where the tune is going will then dictate how much swing I'm using. If I'm making like an old school garage or house tune, I probably have a lot of swing, but if I'm making kind of more of a techie, jack-in, sort of modern kind of tune, I don't know, I'd probably use a less swing and maybe try and apply it in different ways. Something that I do quite often is my ghost snares are more swung than my shakers, and a lot of the time my shakers are actually quite straight, if not like actually bang on, not swung at all. And I might just have one open hat that's swung. I found sometimes that swinging all the elements of the drums sometimes doesn't make it groove better. Yeah. I definitely will do that one day. But yeah, I don't know. I like the kind of the style of like of an EP and a single. I like the kind of I kind of want to release more music more often, and just because I feel like my sound is almost like changing every like year or 6 months a little bit. So I think maybe an album would be more suitable when I've actually got like a reason to do like a full length piece of music, for sure. So I actually try and load as much stuff into my Ableton as I possibly can. So whether that's acapellas or just sounds that I've downloaded from a lot of like archive websites. I do buy a lot of sample packs. Like I said, like they're the two things I spend the most money on. It's like instrument plugins and sample packs. It's like just finding them sounds. It's almost like a bit of a hobby of mine to like collect sounds. So yeah, I do download a lot of archive stuff, a lot of like old 90s sample CDs from the internet, and I actually buy them as well. And I use Sample Market, Loop Masters a lot, and just buy a lot of things. So I'm like a big fan of like Jeremy Sylvester, and I really like MJ Cole as well. They're like the two sort of like garage artists that I kind of relate to the most. But then I suppose I'm really inspired as well by the late 2000s and the early 2010s. Like I love Chris Lorenzo. In the late 2000s, he was doing a lot of bassline speed garage records that really I love. And then he was also doing a lot of kind of jack-in house, deep house records in the 2010s that really inspired me. So Chris Lorenzo is definitely a bit of a hero of mine. But yeah, I think I'm also really inspired by a lot of the DJs currently around and a lot of the sounds from this kind of tech house movement currently sort of happening. So I try and throw that all into it as well. The main way the city influenced sound was just the first that was the first sort of dance music that I got into, was the kind of niche Sheffield style bassline sound. When I was younger, I just loved it. I just used to listen to it all the time. I love the melodies. I love the feeling that you get when you just put on a tune and you're just hit with like this mad orchestral, like instrumental with like some R&B vocals. It's just like, it just sounds so classic, so nostalgic to me. So yeah. I think the scene will grow. I think that there's so many good artists right now. I imagine that the scene will probably have different sections as well. I think it already is starting to feel like it does. And there's a sound that's kind of more tailored for like bass heavy drops in the garage scene. And there's certain sounds that I think is like very inspired by the fastest trancey influenced stuff in Amsterdam. And then maybe some more stuff that's kind of a bit more inspired by tech house and, you know, kind of like classic house sound. So I think garage is definitely starting to sort of grow and expand, I think, for sure.